here in Southern California, and I've got my mount set up, and I'll be mounting my telescope and my guide camera next so I can shoot the Comet tonight. Installation of my RASA 8 complete, as well as the installation of the QHY-CCD pole master camera. You can check that out on my blog. I wrote a blog entry yesterday on it. This will help me polar align the scope or the mount. Alright, so now I've got my camera attached to my telescope. It's the ASI 533 Pro one-shot color. I've got a heavy-duty powered USB hub mounted to the underneath, and the reason I mounted it there is that the weight gives me some front end weight to balance easier on the scope. And then on the back end here, you'll notice, if you look at my blog entry from yesterday as well, I wrote a little blurb about the EvoStar EvoGlide 50 ED. This is the guide scope, and this is going to help me track my target by keeping a star in alignment, just like a kind of a deer rifle keeps the target in the crosshairs. So I'll get on into more of that as we go. So I got my power set up here. I don't like running off of my battery in my car or pulling out a deep cycle battery. So I have a 750 watt inverter that I have set up, hooked up to my battery, because to keep myself warm out here, since I'm mobile 14 miles away from the city, I sit in my car at night listening to whatever, radio, audio books, and I keep my car on. So now we walk back over here, and you'll notice that it looks like my telescope grew, but in fact it didn't. What you're seeing here is a dew shield, and this is just an extension that goes on the end of the scope, and it's got a felt inside. And what this does is it prevents dew from forming and getting on my telescope, and the felt will absorb any moisture that might come over, but I never have any problems with it, to tell you the truth. It also helps with lateral light intrusions. I'm at a state park, and sometimes there's cars that come, so their lights won't really affect me because they have to shine directly in. And then you'll notice that I have something wrapped around my guide scope. This is essentially a electric blanket for this scope. It's called a dew heater, and it's going to keep everything warm so that the lens doesn't fog up as it gets really cold out here. If you have a fogged up lens, you'll lose your guiding because your star disappears, and then the scope and the mount doesn't know what's going on. Hello everybody, I'm in my observatory planetarium software called Stellarium. Now, this is a free software. You can download it. I'll try to put a link in the video here when I make it. And I'm going to configure my mount, and the mount is what controls the telescope, and that's what you saw that I'm going to be polar aligning. But I had it set up in Tucson when I was there last month, so I have a GPS module that I have hooked up to my computer. And so the first thing I want to do is I want to open up this configuration window and click on GPS, and then I'm going to go to my, I believe it's COM7, and I'm going to retrieve coordinates, and you can see that it auto retrieved coordinates right here, and I'm going to accept, and then it threw those coordinates over here into the mount. So now the mount knows where we're at. So that's important to know when you're configuring everything. Next, I'm going to load up my image acquisition software. This will control my camera. This is going to control the mount. It's going to do my plate solving. all that good junk that I need in order to get my um, pictures right. So the first thing I want to do is we're going to connect everything. So on the camera, I'm going to connect it, and you can see down here, camera successfully connected, and I'm going to start the cooling process. And I'm going to shoot at minus 10 degrees Celsius. So the camera has a little Peltier cooler in it. And the reason why you cool it is because it generates heat during the night. Not much, but any heat will cause noise on your image. So to keep the temperature consistent, you choose a temperature, and it's always going to be keeping it at minus 10, so that your noise is always the same. So when you run your calibration frames during stacking, the noise will calibrate out because it's consistent throughout the whole night. So the next step we're going to do is we're going to connect the focuser. And this is an automatic focuser that you use to focus your camera or focus your telescope, and it uses a computer algorithm and a whole batch file and a whole system in order to determine the best focus point. And I want to set up the mount, and now it needs to coordinate where I'm at. So I'm going to go from my telescope, which I just programmed the GPS to Nina, and now the telescope knows exactly where it's at, or I'm sorry, the image acquisition software is talking to the mount. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up my guider, and this runs a program called PhD, which sounds really fancy, but it's an acronym for Push Here Dummy. And it's funny because it was a play on words, because he made it so you don't have to do a lot of programming. You just have to get it set up initially and then push a button, and that's why it's Push Here Dummy. And then finally, this is a weather module, and the weather module, based on your GPS, will tell you what the current conditions are. The only thing I don't like about it is it's all Celsius, and being American, we don't really use the Celsius system, so I don't want to do the 9/5 or the 5/9 or whatever that formula was that we learned back in high school. So I just kind of know where I want to be. The most important thing is it tells me the dew point. So at 4.7 degrees Celsius, everything's going to dew up. And that's important if I didn't have dew heaters. But it also tells you your wind and your humidity, etc., etc. All right, so I'm going to stop for now, and then we're going to do a little bit of polar alignment. Hello, everybody. We're into the polar alignment portion of our program now, and this program is called PoleMaster. And I showed you the camera earlier. I'm going to connect the PoleMaster, and you'll see that it's going to show some stars, and by messing around with these gains and exposure limits, we can make everything a little bit brighter and more easy to manipulate. So now, unfortunately, I'm a one-man show, so I can't be shooting external video. I'll do that at a later date, but I'm going to be altering my alt azimuth and all my knobs on my scope until I can get Polaris centered into my view. Polaris is the North Star, as they call it. And the reason why it's there is because it's always visible in the northern hemisphere above the horizon, and it's whatever longitude you're at, or latitude, I mean. So we're at like 34 degrees, so it's always 34 degrees above the horizon. So basically, the star is right over the North Pole. And that's important because you want to get your mount zeroed in on this particular star. So right now, I'm going to put the green crosshair up in the upper left right on this, and then there's a template because the stars never move. So you can see that I can get everything aligned in here. Once I do that, I'm going to hit success, and I already have it programmed in, so I don't have to do that step. And now it's saying double click on Polaris again, and then I'm going to do this step again. It looks like we're pretty much there. I don't think I can improve it much. So I'm going to hit success, and now I have to move Polaris to this little rotating circle with the plus sign in it. And that's going to zoom in and give me alignment with the star. It's not very complicated, but if you don't do it right, you're going to get the stars that are elliptical and egg shaped. And that's no good for shooting photography. And this can be hit and miss. Now that I'm there, I'm going to hit finish. Now I'm going to it asks me to double click on Polaris again. And based on this new data, and we're only talking microns that we moved everything, it's going to have me set this template up again, and that will calculate the error that I had. And now it's going to ask me to start the final process, which is a monitor here, and you'll notice that you have a green crosshair and a red crosshair. The game is now to get your green crosshair to exactly line up over the red crosshair. And this is the frustrating part, is it's difficult. And you'll notice that it jumps up and down a little bit because we're talking about really small numbers here. And I'm never 100% accurate, but the old term, close enough for government work, I've never, knock on wood, I've really never really had any stars along these because I don't have to take 5-6 minute exposures with this particular setup. So I'm satisfied with what we have right now. And you notice down here it said camera connected and cooled, so we're all good to go on there. All right, so next step is we're going to do some autofocusing. So I'm going to pause it now and come back to that. All right, welcome back. We're going to do some focusing now, and I just shot a test photo, and it's got a star field in it, and you'll notice that all the stars have these little numbers next to them. And basically what this does is it measures the fuzziness of the stars. So as you get in focus, these numbers shrinks. So it might go from 2.82 to 2.72 down to 2.62, etc., etc. Now it's going to get to the point where it's at the smallest point, the most pinpoint fuzziness, and then it's going to start moving the other way. And this is depicted in this graph right here, this deep V. And you can see that it started at 20 and went down to 15, down to 10, down to 5. And on this particular night, the focus point was 2.36. So I'm close right now, but I'm not close enough for the most perfect shot that I can get. So right here, we're going to run what's called an autofocus subroutine, and it's going to shoot a series of photos, and you're going to hear a focus motor, and it's going to get it out of focus. It's going to shoot a picture, plot it, and bring it down, and then it's going to extrapolate based off these numbers the most accurate focus point. And then once it determines that, it will turn the focus motor back to this point and run a test and make sure that it's accurate as a checksum. So let's get to it. So you can hear the focus motor there. And it's at 21. And you can see how this turned into a donut shape. When it's out of focus, that's the camera itself on the lens that I showed you earlier. And it's down to 16. And if you look right here, it's down in the left hand corner. This is the exposure. They're shooting 6-second exposures. And it went down to 11.11. Now we're down to 3.05. Now it's gained a little bit, 3.89. So you notice from here to here, it extrapolated a point, this invisible point right here. That's where it thinks it should be. So it's not a symmetrical V, but it did choose a focal point of 2.62, and it looks like we're pretty much in focus. So next thing we're going to do is wait for this car to go by. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to plate solve to a target. So stay tuned. All right, we're back. We're back in Stellarium. We're going to go over to the search function, and we're going to shoot something really simple right now. We're going to go to the Orion Nebula, and then I'm going to put my scope on. Over here you can see that it's got the ZWO 533 with the RASA 8, and this gives me my field of view, and this is exactly how the image is going to look if I shoot it right now based on where the scope will be. So the next thing I have to do is I'm going to select this object, current object, and then I'm going to go back to my Nina, and I'm going to go to this framing wizard right here, and I'm going to click get the coordinates from Stellarium, and you can see Great Orion Nebula has populated. And then next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit slew and center. And now the telescope is actually moving, and I'm going to try to shoot a corresponding video with it. I'll try to run that side by side, maybe as a split screen. Hopefully there's no feedback on this. Now what it's doing is it's shooting a picture of the stars. And based on the focal length of the camera, or the pixel size of the camera and the focal length of the telescope, it maps out the stars, and measuring the distance between the stars, it will figure out where it's at in the horizon. And now it knows in the stellarium where Orion needs to be, right ascension, alt azimuth, all the coordinates. Then it's going to start moving and put it right in the middle of my view. So you can see this was the first shot. The second shot's coming up now, and there's Orion. And for some reason the plate solve failed, but no, that happens every once in a while. We'll let it go through, and then I'll do it again, and it should work this time. Every once in a while you get a failure. So we're going through, we're shooting another 10-second, 5-second exposure. There we go. Telescope is not inside tolerance, sinking scope. So now it's going to nudge it a little bit. We're talking about a micron or two, and it's going to help center the object. All right, so now I'm totally on this target now. You can see there's Orion, the Great Orion Nebula, and you've seen my processed images before. Now let's all right, we're back in our imaging area, and you can see that I had a 5-second exposure, but right now I'm going to shoot a 60-second exposure. And now the next step I'm going to go to is my guiding, which is PhD software, and I'm going to select my star field, and it's going to select a star for me, and I'm going to hit push here, the push button, and now it's starting the guide. And basically that secondary scope I showed you has put the crosshairs right here on the star, and as it moves and nudges, it's going to tell the mount move and nudge to keep it in the center, and it's depicted on this graph here. So you can see it starts out a little shaky, so you got to kind of let it get up to speed, as I say, and the lines will get a lot closer, and you'll get less periodic, or not periodic, but less error. So it's almost ready in my mind. Our total area, our error rate is 0.24 and 0.44. Now that just tells you on microns how much movement there is. As long as that number is below the diameter of a pixel on this camera, which it is, I think the pixel is somewhere like 0.7, I think. The movement will never show up because you'll never get an elongated star. So now that we're guiding, we're going to go back to the program, and then we're going to shoot a 60-second video, 60-second shot. So I'm going to pause it real quick so I don't waste your time, and we'll be back. All right, we're back, and as you can see, we've shot our single exposure at 60 seconds, and we have some satellites running right through the middle of Orion right here. This is my crosshair. I'll take the crosshair off, but we have there's like 2 satellites crossing through, probably Starlinks, and they look pretty close together right now. They might not have divided out yet, but it doesn't matter. I have software that accounts for those straight lines. Those aren't natural, and when it detects it, it'll calibrate those out and remove those pixels and fill them in. So never had to, on a finished product, never had a satellite unless I chose to have a satellite. All right, so now let's take a look at the photograph itself. And this is called a FITS, and this keeps all my information, the coordinates, etc. It also gives me a histogram, lets me zoom in. This one's in color, and you can see that it looks good, but it's not exactly there, and my guiding is not very good right now. So something happened to it. See how it's, I don't have sharp stars, so I will have to look at that. So anyway, this is a test. So we're going to click on the histogram and we're going to see where my data point is. And you can see that my spike is to the left 2/3, but I like to keep it around this point. So I'm a little bit overexposed. So I'm going to cut my exposure down to 45 seconds, and then I'm going to look at my guiding and see what's going on there. So we're going to go 45 seconds, and then let's go to the guiding and see where we're at. The error is not too bad. So there might have been a hiccup in the middles there somewhere. I know I walked by the mount, but I don't think that I caused that much disturbance, but who knows. Since it's only 45 seconds, I'm going to keep it live right now, since it's almost done. We're at 31 seconds right now. We'll go back to my snapshot directory, and then at 45 seconds you'll see the new shot pop up right here, and then we're going to take a look at it. And lo and behold, I got sharp stars, so I must have, my big old feet must have caused problems. And you can see we got another flyby, some more satellites, and then this right here is a dust mode, which means there's something on my sensor. It's always been there, and it's underneath glass, so it's difficult to clean. And since it's always there and consistent, I use calibration frames, and I can get that out of there. So it looks kind of ugly on the FITS, but it never shows up on the regular photo. And let's take a look at the histogram. And I made some improvements. It's moved to the left a little bit. Probably good enough to shoot with. So I'm going to set up some quick shots here until I can get my Comet shot. I'm going to be shooting that Comet that's out right now. And I'll probably do a small video when I start setting that up, and then I'll splice it in with this tutorial. All right, have a good night. I want to thank everybody for being with me on this tutorial on how to set up. All the things that go into setting up before I shoot my target. I wanted to show you the output that I received, and one of the grim realities of astrophotography is that you could spend 3 or 4 hours setting up and getting everything ready and then produce an absolutely horrible result, just due to conditions. And as you can see, my effort was not rewarded tonight. This particular comet is very low in the horizon, and I'm shooting in the Los Angeles area, and it just happens to go right over the light plume of Los Angeles in the San Fernando Valley. And the target is not high enough in my current position where my light pollution filters can filter out the gradient. So I showed you what the product was, and you can see upper left, everything's blasted out and overexposed, and I can't color correct for it. So I'm probably going to have to go out to Joshua Tree National Monument over the weekend and try to get some really good shots out in a dark sky area and then do some processing. But it's not all fun and games. Well, it's not all successful fun and games. I still enjoy it, but one of the things about a hobby is that it's a learning experience, and it's not always going to work out for you. You're going to have equipment failures, and then you're going to have just some light pollution, things getting in the way. So anyway, I really appreciate you tuning in, and I'm going to try to do more of these so that you can know what's going on. And you can see that if you go over to my website and look at my finished prints, that these are the ones that I was successful in. So Not all of them are successful in the beginning, but I'll get it and I'll put a nice picture up there, and then I'll put it up on my website so you can get some product. Thank you very much and have a great night.